Hey, welcome to the Adobe Live show with the Premiere Pro team. We're here to talk about some troubleshooting tips, some quality of life, and anything related to performance. So, what we aim to do periodically is really, bring representatives from the Premiere Pro team to talk about things that don't really get the big press. We're not going to be talking about the big flashy features. We're going to be talking about the little things that sometimes get missed, but nevertheless are going to be really important in your day-to-day workflows. So, to start off, my name is Francis Crossman. I'm a principal product manager on Premiere Pro, and I'm joined by Andy and Fergus. Hey, let's introduce ourselves, guys. Over to you, Andy.
Good morning or good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm Andy Edwards. I've previously been a technical account manager for Adobe for the past 3 years, and now I'm on the Strat Dev team for Premiere. My main goal has been supporting some of our broadcast customers in some of their workflows and also chief troubleshooting, when they run into issues. So we'll be diving into some serious little tips on troubleshooting and look forward to your questions.
And
Hey
over to
everyone,
you, Fergus.
I'm Fergus Hammond. I'm another principal product manager on the Premiere team. So my team is responsible for format support, so camera and codecs, what we support there. It's also responsible for performance and stability. So we think a lot about making sure that anytime you buy a new piece of hardware, it's taken advantage of as best as possible in our products. So I'm really excited to be on the call and chat with people today. Happy Friday, wherever you are.
Yeah, we made it through the week, guys. Weekend is coming. Okay, I'm just looking at the chat here. We got a couple of people filing in. Cody Bear, hi. I see you on YouTube and on Behance, so well done. You win the award for following us on both platforms. Thanks for that. Okay, so I think we're just gonna kick stuff off. Let's really jump right in and let's go over to Andy, and he's gonna take us through some troubleshooting tips and tricks, things to
Great.
help Premiere run smoothly.
Awesome. Thanks, Francis. Yeah, if you want to grab my screen here from the presentation. And the big thing about troubleshooting when you contact us is, how to write a bug report. It's key that you give us a short little intro of your issue, but there's a lot of other things that a lot of people miss. And it's something that, we want you to provide as much information as you can so we can try and reproduce it on our end so we can get back to you and help you solve the problem. So seems like a lot here, but it's in the details. You really need to help us help you. So things that are important, give us the version and the build number because we do iterate a lot with our updates. It's important that you give us the exact version you're in. Operating system, Mac OS or Windows. Which one are you on? Which build and version? System info, your CPU, if it's an Intel-based system, are you on an M1, an M2, an M3, an M4? Which part of the Apple ecosystem are you in? If you've got a GPU on the PC side, give us the brand and driver version that you're using because there have been driver issues in the past that, we partner up with our GPU partners and we talk to them and we try and solve that for you if we run into an issue. RAM, sometimes your system is underpowered. Are you trying to do a 2K, a 4K, an 8K project? Well, do you have enough RAM that's not going to drown your system? Hard drive details. Are you just working off your internal hard drive that's on your laptop? Are you connected to a Thunderbolt one? Are you connected to network storage off of your system? Giving us those little details sort of help fill in the blanks of, okay, are you having a throughput issue? Are you having something where the media is just not fast enough and it's too slow for your system? Third-party I/O. Do you have AJA or Blackmagic? What version, what drivers do you have installed? And as you'll see when we get into some of the tips later on, it comes to it's important that you stay up to date on that. So also third-party plugins, Boris, Sapphire, any of the Maxon plugins, Red Giant, Film Impact. There's a lot of plugins out there. We need to know what you're putting into your project. So, you can give us those details. Video formats and codecs. This is important. Some codecs are heavier than others. On the Apple ecosystem, are you in ProRes? Cutting like butter, no problem. Are you on Windows? Which codec are you using? Provide those details to us because it gives us a map to understanding, oh, do we have an issue with that? Let's look in our internal bug database, see if we do. If we don't, we want to reach out and have a chat with you. Audio is important just as much as video, AIF, WAV, MP3s. Sometimes you have old MP3 sound effect files. Well, maybe sometimes you just need to flip that to an AIF or a WAV file. Workflow details. Is it a giant multicam project? Is it something with tons of layers of graphics? Are you doing dynamic linking to and from After Effects and back to your projects? Just give us a better picture of what is going on in your project. And then, if we reach out, can you provide test media to us to try and repro it on our end? And then one of Fergus's favorite sayings is very important part of this, the steps to reproduce the issue. Can you, in a numbered list, give us steps 1, 2, 3 that you took before it crashed, before it lagged out, before you ran into the problem? That helps us help you. What was the expected result of that and what your actual result is? So, Fergus, any questions, anything on the chat?
No questions, Andy. I think I just
Okay.
would definitely strongly agree with you. One of the things that I learned when I joined the video team is that, even if we've got a really good description of a problem, if we can't reproduce it, it's really hard for us to fix a problem. So it's great, like Andy's saying, when you log that bug report, and we've got a link that he'll share on our website to how to do that, the things exactly we need. It's really great if you can say, I did this and this and this, and then here's what's happened, and then here's what should have happened. Because then if we can do the same thing with our engineering team, if we can reproduce the problem, then we're able to fix it. So like Andy's saying, that's really important.
Yeah, super. So help us help you. All right, let's move on a little bit into this. So when you're updating your project, sometimes if editors are in a big series or they're doing a lot of different types of projects, your media cache can get filled up. So getting into the healthy habit of cleaning out your media cache before you start your next project can be very helpful to making sure you don't have any old cruft when you reversion or if you step up to a new version. Sometimes just starting out fresh with cleaning out all that media cache before you dive into a long form project or even a short form project. Go into your media cache, and on the screen here you've got your locations, but you can do it inside of Premiere as well. Let me tab out of here. So if you want to see where your media cache is located, you can come in here and this is where you can browse to. Now we do recommend, if you've got a fast secondary SSD to put your media cache in that location besides just your OS drive. But then you can delete these on a case-by-case basis as needed, or you can set it with the auto features to do it every 90 days, or if you reach a certain threshold of how many gigs per the folder is, you can set that here. So let's go back here. But if you also want to manually delete your media cache, these are the locations that you can go to on Mac and Windows. It's in the common folder. And when you path to that, you'll see the media cache and the media cache files, and you can just wipe those out. They will be rebuilt when you start up a next project, so don't worry about that. Let's go to the next page here. And then the other option is when you do launch Premiere, you can clear these out by holding down the Shift key on Mac OS or Shift on Windows as well. And you can activate that as a troubleshooting step as well. You can reset your plugin loading cache, you can reset your app preferences, but remember, before you reset those preferences, back some of your settings up if you need to, because it will wipe some of those out, and you want to, you know how you have all your list of projects, know where your projects are, because that will clean that out. You can disable third-party plugins, the one time, or and then dive into the project and check and see if you're getting any issues with that when you're troubleshooting. Let's go on here. Now, I just want to give you an idea of what's in the media cache. These are some of the extensions when you go into your common folder and then media cache. You've got, the CFA files, the peak files, the media cache database files. All of these are ways that speed up your edit from a standpoint of we use these for faster playback and waveform drawing, and it's a way that you take those little media cache files to give you better performance. So if you have any questions on these, let's see.
Yeah, no questions about
Okay,
this just yet. We do have a question about iPhone footage, but I volunteered to,
we can address
show
that.
show how to deal with iPhone footage when it's my turn.
Okay, awesome. All right. Moving on, fine tuning your preferences, with some, just giving you an example here. If you're not using growing files, if you're not in a sports broadcast environment or a news capturing environment where you're dealing with capturing growing files, why don't you go into your preferences and just, turn those off? You don't want Premiere polling, checking every little bit, looking for your growing file. So this is just one example of some little step that quality of life little thing you can turn off and maybe won't be impacted by that. All right. The compatibility report. When you boot up your system and you're looking for issues with your system, Premiere will run this on both Windows and Mac, and it will give you options like, is your GPU have an issue? Is it unsupported device? Um, is it an older NVIDIA card that isn't supported anymore and the video driver's out of date? This compatibility report will run, and usually what you want to see is like it is on the right, no conflicts to report. That's what we like to see, but everybody's system is different. And, we try as much as we can with the great teams that we have to test as many different versions of hardware that we can. But sometimes, we don't quite have the exact same system as you do. So this will be one way to check for that. All right. Now, updating your third-party plugins, as I mentioned before, this is important. Check the third-party plugins website. Make sure their own teams that test with us when they're on the betas. Make sure they're not reporting issues. Check their FAQs. Do they see something? And plan to stand back and wait on your upgrade until that has been addressed by the third party. Red Giant, Maxon has some amazing plugins, and they're a great partner of ours. And it's something that, guess what? Sometimes, everybody's not in lockstep. So you want to take the time before you upgrade your system and make sure that it's covered. Film Impact, audio plugins as well, and any of the Boris plugins, but there are a lot of other third-party plugins. So just make sure they're up to date. Now, update your third-party hardware drivers. This is something from last week I ran into with a huge broadcast customer. They reached out and they're like, we've been crashing nonstop on playback. What is going on? We just upgraded to the latest version and it's been, we're having a really bad experience. And what it turned out to be was they had an AJA piece of hardware in their system that hadn't had its drivers updated for quite a while. And as soon as they popped in the new driver, and guess what? Playback returned to normal. They weren't having any other issues. So it's important that you understand your hardware in your system and be proactive in knowing what's the latest driver. Read the internet from a standpoint of the forums and see, are people complaining about a specific driver? Look at our community forums. Are people starting to report something? see if there's some sort of common issue there that you might find out. You're like, you know what? I'm just going to wait. This project is too important. I'm not going to upgrade this week. I'll wait and figure it out. Network attached storage, there are teams that you have a lot of third-party products for that. Make sure your drivers are up to date because maybe one older driver doesn't work with the new version of the OS and Premiere, and there's a hiccup there and your speeds slow down. Well, you want to be able to know your third-party vendor has tested that. And for any other help and resources, while you've got our HelpX, you can visit our support website. You can join the Adobe community and also, check out our official YouTube channel, which you're watching right now. So that's it from my end. I'm open to any questions, or we can move on to the next step. Francis.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Those are all really great tips. And, I've been editing video for a long time. Before coming to Adobe, I was a video editor for 10 years, and I've lived through all of these troubleshooting steps myself. And this is just kind of a rite of passage of, becoming more enlightened to how the technology is working. And I kind of like to say that it's a miracle that any of this stuff works. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is. Like, Adobe has to work with Apple and Nvidia and Red Giant and AJA and Blackmagic and all of these companies. We all have to work together to make sure that we're not messing each other up. And most of the time, we do a really good job. But these troubleshooting steps that Andy went through are going to help you deal with those, small cases where things are maybe going off the rails.
It's a
Sometimes computers
delicate
do.
dance,
It really
to
is.
understand, and we have amazing partners out there that, when I have a chance, I jump on a phone call with them, we discuss it, and they see something that I didn't see, I see something they didn't see, and it's a great partnership. So,
Yeah.
hopefully take that to the customer.
Yeah. I think let's go over to my screen and I want to answer a question from Socials and Stilettos. Great street name, by the way, screen name. Uh, they were asking about iPhone footage and how to get iPhone footage to look correct when you export. So I have some iPhone footage here, and the thing about iPhone footage is that it's HDR. It's high dynamic range. They use a version of high dynamic range called HLG, which, if you're really nerdy and interested, that stands for hybrid log gamma. A description of what that actually means is probably for another time. But basically, the upshot is that it can capture a wider dynamic range than your typical video, which is a good thing. It looks good. However, most platforms out there are not really ready for HDR just yet. So here's some tips. So I have some iPhone footage here, and if I go and I drag and I make a new sequence out of it, uh, a couple of things are going to happen. It's going to make a new sequence, but then probably what you guys are seeing on the stream here is that it's really blown out and probably looks terrible. And this, I'm sure everyone who has dealt with iPhone footage has run into this problem before. So here's how to fix it. Couple of things. When you create a sequence out of your iPhone footage in the manner that I just did, the sequence that we make is going to use the same color space as the media. Normally, this is good, but in this case, you're getting messed up. So go over to the Lumetri panel. And if you don't see the Lumetri panel in your setup, you can go to Window, Lumetri Color, and open up that panel. And make sure you go over to the settings tab of the Lumetri panel. Probably everyone is used to seeing, this tab of the Lumetri panel where you can do your edits, but there is this settings tab as well. And let me show you some things to check. First of all, you should make sure that display color management is turned on. This is going to make sure that Premiere is communicating with your operating system and your display to make sure that the colors are showing accurately. That alone isn't going to fix this issue. But the next thing that you need to do is come down here to the sequence section where it says color setup. And right now it's set to direct HLG parentheses HDR. What I recommend doing is setting this to direct 709 SDR. And then all of a sudden, you're going to notice a big change. All of a sudden, the overexposed, blown out nature of this clip is controlled. And that's because we're doing tone mapping. So Premiere will automatically take that HDR source, the HDR iPhone footage, and we're going to do the color conversion in a correct manner to squish all of that high dynamic range down into a standard dynamic range output. So at this point, you'll be in good shape. Any iPhone footage that you add to this sequence will automatically be tone mapped. But there's one other thing that you should look at. Because when you go and you export this, there's another problem that people often talk about, which is that, okay, now the contrast looks a bit different. And they're confused by that. So the way that you can fix that issue is there's a setting here for viewer gamma, and you can change it to 1.96 for QuickTime. And what this means now is that now it's going to set up your monitor to view in the same manner that QuickTime Player on the Mac will view. And that gamma that QuickTime Player uses is the same that online streaming platforms on the Mac, anyway, use. So we're all talking about color management here, which is a deep topic, but the upshot is if your iPhone footage is looking funky, make sure display color management is turned on. I recommend setting the viewer gamma to 1.96 and make sure your color setup is set to direct Rec 709 standard dynamic range SDR. So those things will help you get correct well, I say correct, but let's put some air quotes around correct. It will get outputs from iPhone footage looking the way you expect. So I hope that answers the question. Yes, I think people are confirming that. That's yes. Okay, cool. So I am actually here today to talk about quality of life, but I was very happy to go on a tangent and answer that question about iPhone footage. So quality of life, what does that mean? Quality of life is a sort of a category of work that we talk about little fixes that we can do to make people's life better. It's oftentimes not the sort of like big flashy features. These are like little tweaks that we do because you stub your toe on it a million times a day. So the first thing is quite simple, updated sample media. So we now have much more interesting and dynamic sample media that ships with the app. So if you're just getting started with your editing journey, you can use this media to sort of practice your editing and all that stuff. So here's how you get to that. You go to the import mode. By default, you should see sample media, but if you've navigated, somewhere else, you can get back to it by clicking on sample media on the left here. And you can, select any or all of this stuff and bring it into your project. And when you bring stuff in your project, you can choose to create a new sequence out of it. You can choose to turn on, automatic transcription and media intelligence, and all that good stuff. But once you bring that in your project, then of course, you can start editing with this stuff. So that's just a nice sort of thing. But the next one, which I'm actually quite excited about, this is a sort of a very stupid problem that Premiere has had for a long time, which is that the effects control panel when you try to go to the last frame, will show the first frame of the next clip. So anyone who's tried to do like the sort of Ken Burns style, slow push in or whatever, probably knows what I'm talking about. So I've got a couple of clips here, and this is the sort of like a virtual camera move that I was trying to do on these two clips. It's a push in, and then this one is like a pull out, so it looks like a big dolly shot, that kind of thing. And the way that I achieved this, I bet you can kind of guess, is that in the effects control panel, I keyframed the scale and position, and I pushed in on this shot. And then on this shot, it was also, keyframing the position and scale, and I pulled out. So this is a sort of a common thing that you want to do pretty frequently, especially if you have like a bunch of images and you want to kind of make them more interesting, as I say, the classic Ken Burns. But let me show you what the last version used to do and how frustrating it was. So I'm in version 24 of Premiere now. I changed the appearance to be a little bit lighter so that you can tell very clearly that I'm in a different version of the app. But so here we have the clip selected. There's no camera move on it. And I'm going to add keyframe to position and scale. And I'm going to move the playhead to the last frame. And then, oh my God, it changed to the next clip. What the heck? So then you have to like back up one frame and put some keyframes and, do your camera move. Now, it might not seem like just having to back up one frame is a big deal, but if you're doing this over and over and over again, and like here it's showing me black, like because the next frame is black on the timeline. It might not seem like this is a big deal, but it's a super frustrating thing that pretty much every editor has run into. So now over in the new version 25, I'm going to just remove attributes. Let's just remove the motion adjustment I did on these clips. Let's recreate this. And you'll notice that when I go to the last frame, it stays on the last frame. And so now I can do my virtual camera move, go to the next clip, same thing, keyframe position and scale, go to the last frame, and I guess, yeah, let's push in on this. Why not? And so now it's just a lot more convenient. This is a basic thing, but, anyone who's been editing for any period of time has stubbed their toe on this problem a lot, and now we fixed it. Next thing is waveform flickering. So what used to happen when you adjusted audio on the timeline is that the waveforms would flicker from time to time because of, redraw issues. So, if you're, doing something like this, like, adjusting the scale of your timeline, uh, we've gotten rid of that flickering. And let me go back over to version 24 and show you what it used to look like. It was not fun. So in this case, actually, my waveforms are not present at all. But what you can see is the line here, the volume line is flickering, and it's stupid. So what we did I'm back over in version 25 now. What we did is we actually GPU accelerated the waveform drawing. So not only are they going to be more, just smoother during the editing process, but also they're going to generate a lot faster as well. So we completely overhauled the way that waveforms work in Premiere. And actually, one other thing that we did is waveform scaling. So when you adjust volume, like I'm doing here, it actually adjusts the scale of the waveform itself, which is a really nice addition. This is the sort of thing that it just works the way you think it should work. This is not revolutionary. This is just no-brainer. And some of these quality of life issues that we work on, quite honestly, are no-brainers. Like they should just we should just do them, and so we do. Um, okay, let me just see. Yes. Mm-hmm. I agree. Thank you, socials and stilettos. I agree with that sentiment. Next up, we've got mute and solo toggle. So, what the heck does this mean? Mute and solo toggle. What this means is that we can mute or solo tracks in the timeline based on the track targeting. So I'm going to share some audio here and I'm going to explain why this might be useful. So I've got a short segment here and there's some uh voice on these first three tracks, and then I've got some sound design down here on these tracks and some music down here. In fact, let me just sort of make this a little bit bigger so that we've got more real estate for the audio. And as you're working with a sort of a complex project like this, sometimes it makes sense to isolate what you're working on by soloing and muting tracks. So let me just play this back a little bit.
Nuestra comunidad que existe aquí en la zona es un
This is
vecindario muy
a
bonito.
documentary
Y
in
nuestro
Spanish.
restaurante es en la casa donde nací. El poder yo estar conectando con gente todos los días y que tengo esa libertad.
Okay, so that's just a little taste. It's a documentary about a restaurant in Mexico. And let's say I want to focus just on the dialogue. So I might come here and solo these dialogue tracks. And now I'm not hearing any of the sound design or music.
Y que tengo esa libertad artística para poder crear, poner y quitar en lo que queramos cocinar nosotros. Eso.
Okay. Or maybe I want to focus on the sound design and the music, and I want to mute these dialogue tracks. But what you're seeing me do is quite a lot of clicking and making decisions, about what I want to mute or solo. So now what we have is the ability to just toggle this on and off by a menu item here, but also by keyboard shortcuts. So let's see here. Toggle mute for all targeted audio tracks. So what this means is that the audio tracks that are targeted we're gonna change the mute status of those targeted tracks. And what I mean by targeted is these blue little cells here. These are the track targeting. So I can say, let's mute those. And you could imagine if you had like 97 audio tracks and a very complex assortment of things that you want to mute or solo, it could be very handy to do this. So now I've got my dialogue turned off and I'm just focused on sound design and music. Or let's toggle that and solo, so we're
Con
only
la
focused
tradición
on
de mi
dialogue.
mamá y de mi abuela y de la zona que es de Bahía de Banderas.
Yo empecé con un chiquito en una renta.
But let me show you how you can assign these to keyboard shortcuts as well. So if you go into the keyboard shortcut editor, and by the way, this is actually a big tip. If you don't know what a command is in Premiere, this is a great place to find how you can do very complex things. So I'm going to search for toggle mute. And here it is, toggle mute for all tracks. And I'm going to assign a very complicated keyboard shortcut, Command Option Shift M. And then let's look for toggle solo, and I'll assign another very complicated shortcut. Now I don't think that I'm going to use this function very often, so I'm okay for it to be kind of a complex shortcut. But now you'll
Dándose,
notice
pero
that I can toggle these while I am playing back.
y mi esposo hizo la construcción especialmente para yo, pues hay que pasarnos para no pasar pagar renta. Así ya estamos más en
So this is an advanced audio editing quality of life improvement. You could imagine you could assign these keyboard shortcuts to, like, if you have a loop deck or a stream deck, like one of those kind of things, you could just make it be a button on that box on your desk. But this is a nice improvement for folks who do a lot of sound design. Okay, next up, let me just move my thing here. Okay. Next up is a very, very simple feature, which is we added an entry point to get to Adobe Stock in the file menu. And it's really just this. You go to File and then search Adobe Stock. So this literally took an engineer like 5 minutes, but what it does is it pops open the Adobe Stock website, and then you can search for stock. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to point out that we do have a lot of free stuff on stock. Not a lot of people know that. But so if you search for, like, space, right? Because we're all nerds here. We want to find some space pics. We do have, free images, but you can search for free videos. So if you're looking for, maybe stuff to practice with, or, something to augment, a piece that you're working on, you can find some actually pretty good quality free stuff on Adobe Stock. So just wanted to point that out to you guys. And I downloaded a couple of clips here that I thought were cool. So in the kind of space theme. Okay. Next up. Oh, by the way, I just want to point out that sample media, the effects control panel, keyframe thing, and the waveform flickering, all of these things shipped in 25.2, the version that is currently available in market. Mute and Solo and Adobe Stock are shipping in our next version that's coming out very soon. If you want to get access to these features, you can get the beta. And if you don't know how to get the beta, you can go to Creative Cloud Desktop, go to Apps, Beta, and then you can download our beta apps. These run in parallel with your regular installed version of Premiere. They don't interfere. You can share projects back and forth, and you can get access to new features that we're working on before they're actually launched. So that's kind of cool. Next up is another very simple feature, which is sequence label colors. And we've always been able to apply label colors to a sequence, but now we're actually showing these label colors in the sequence tabs here. And so I've actually been using these sequence colors to help myself remember which of these features shipped in the previous version and which of these features are shipping in the next version. And so you can see here these three kind of magenta patches are the previous version, and these these four teal patches, I know that those are shipping in the next version. So it can just help you organize yourself. It's a very small thing, but kind of nice. Next up is actually kind of a bigger feature, which is search filtering. So we released AI-powered media intelligent search in the most recent version, 25.2. We announced that at NAB, and it's been getting a lot of really great press. But we are not done with that feature. And we just added a new capability to it. So here's what I mean by the AI powered intelligent search. So up here in the header bar, there's this new magical magnifying glass, and I can open that up. And this is a search box. So I'm just going to search for person on a motorcycle. And what we're going to find is it's going to scan through all the footage that I have in my project, and it's using AI to find these clips of this person on a motorcycle. Let's look for food because I haven't had my breakfast yet and I want some food. So here's some food. You'll notice here that it's not only finding visuals, but it's also finding bits of transcript where people said the word food. And so this is going to help you find stuff in your project. I'm not going to do a full-on demo of everything that the search panel can do. But what I want to show is that now, in addition to this basic search, we have this filter option here. And so we can create complex filters that are based on metadata. So I could say I only want stuff that has file name that contains A00. And that will help me only find my ACAM stuff. And so now I'm only finding ACAM. Or I could change that and say, only find file name that contains B00. And now it's only giving me clips that have that file name contained within, and that's my BCAM stuff. So we are continually improving these things, and we're listening to customer feedback. All of these things that I showed you here today were based specifically and directly on customer feedback. So I encourage you to go on the forums, post your ideas, tell us what we're doing right, tell us what we could do differently. And we are listening, and we are continually improving and making your life better inside of Premiere Pro with each release. So I think unless there are any big questions in the chat, I think that's my time. I'm going to hand it over to Fergus to talk about performance.
Hey, everyone. So Francis said, we spend a lot of time listening, implementing new features, and this is very true on the format side and on the performance and format side. So there's 4 things I want to talk about today. No flashy demos, just a list of things we're working on and a list of things that we have shipped recently. So the first thing is, if you're a Canon customer shooting on one of Canon's cameras that shoot raw video, so that's a lot of Canon's cameras now. It's the C80, C300, C400, R5C, R5, R5 Mark II, a whole bunch of them, probably more that I'm forgetting as well. So if you're using Canon's Cinema Raw Lite RAW format, that is now hardware accelerated in Premiere Pro. We shipped that in version 25.2. That's the version we shipped just last month. So that is available for customers on Macintosh ARM systems, so Apple Silicon systems, with Windows support coming in the next version. So if you're using Canon Cinema Raw Lite, you can expect to see about a 4 times performance improvement when playback. So previously, if you could just play back 1 track of video, you can now play back 4 without dropping any frames. And export performance is even better. The export performance is up to 10 times as fast. So we did that, the test, if you're, since we're probably, there's a lot of nerds, both on the Adobe side on this call and on the stream. We did that test on it was a M4 MacBook, and we were seeing a 10x performance improvement when we had some Cinema Raw Lite from, I think it was the C80. It was 6K Cinema Raw Lite, and we exported that into ProRes, and there was a 10 times performance improvement. So a huge jump in performance. So if you're a Canon customer and you want to shoot in RAW, we've now got great performance on Mac with Windows coming really soon. The next thing is if you're a Windows customer and you've been looking at a new GPU, you might be interested to know that we now support NVIDIA's Blackwell video card. So Blackwell is NVIDIA's name for their latest generation of GPU. It's the GeForce cards and their RTX cards. On the GeForce side, it's the cards that start with 50, so the 5090, the 5080, 5070, 5060, I think, is coming. So the importance of that card for Windows customers is it's the best way to get hardware. In fact, it's the only way to get hardware acceleration for a really important and very popular format, and that is H.264 10-bit 422. So probably a lot of you on the stream know that whatever your camera, excuse me, whatever camera you're shooting on, unless you're shooting RAW, which is even better quality, the next best quality is 10-bit 422. It's going to give you the most data from your camera and the best quality when you're editing and doing color grading. However, 10-bit 422 and H.264 has not been a format that has had hardware acceleration from NVIDIA or AMD or Intel. So it's not been something that we could change. It's something that we've had to wait for hardware manufacturers to introduce. And we've been sort of making the case for the last couple of years saying, hey, 10-bit 422 is really important. A lot of cameras now, including the one I'm staring into here, support that. And a bunch of them even support that as a default capture format. So 10-bit 422 is now hardware accelerated. It's in beta right now on Windows. So if you're an NVIDIA customer that's using one of the Blackwell cards, go try that out and you'll see a really dramatic performance improvement. So that we're supporting MP4 right now, H.264 and HEVC and MP4. If you're shooting in MXF, that's coming a little bit later to beta. So that's the second thing. Third thing, if you're an ARRI customer, so one of the formats that we support is ARRI RAW. ARRI has a compressed version of that format called ARRI RAW HDE. It's really important because, as probably a lot of you know, ARRI RAW files are giant. They are uncompressed RAW files directly from the camera. You can easily consume 40 gigabytes of storage just in a single minute of ARRI RAW. So ARRI RAW HDE is a compressed version of that, and it saves about 40% of the size of the file size will get 40% smaller if you're using ARRI RAW HDE. So that is going to be released into beta actually later today. I'm clicking on the update button every so often to see when that update actually appears, but it's been finished or it's ready to go into beta, and it'll be on our Creative Cloud desktop application for beta any minute now. So that's the third thing. Oh, related to that, back last month in version 25.2, we also updated our support for ARRI RAW in general. And if you're using ARRI RAW from ARRI's new camera, the Alexa 265, which is their fantastic new 65mm super large format camera, we now support those files. That's the third thing. Lastly, and again, still on formats, NRAW support. So this is a big deal. This is Nikon's new RAW format. Embarrassingly, it's not super new. It's a format that we haven't supported the last couple of years, but we've been working with Nikon to support that format. And that format support is actually coming through the collaboration we had with Red, because as a bunch of you will know, Nikon bought Red a couple of years ago. We've supported Red R3D files almost as long as there have been R3D files. It's one of the RAW formats we support the best. And the technology we use from Red to support R3D, that technology has been updated by Red and Nikon to now support NRAW. So as we update the technology from Red to support their new NRAW format, let me back up. We get NRAW support by way of updating our R3D support is probably the best way to say it. That's not yet in beta. We have it in what we call an internal beta. So we have it running in-house really well. The performance is really good, and we expect to release that in beta later this summer. Lastly, in our close collaboration with Nikon, I have learned that it is pronounced Nikon. Not Nikon, not Nikon as I used to when I lived in Australia, but Nikon apparently is the correct pronunciation. So 4 things, summary, new Canon Cinema Raw Light support accelerated by the GPU, Blackwell support for 10-bit 422 hardware acceleration, new ARRI RAW HDE support in beta today with support for the Alexa 265 we shipped last month, and lastly, NRAW support for you Nikon fans who like to shoot in NRAW. That's it for me.
Well, cool. Thanks, Fergus, and thanks, Andy, for joining, and thanks everyone for tuning in and watching the stream. Unless there are any more questions in the chat, I think we're ready to wrap this up. I'm just going to give it a second. Any last minute questions before we wrap it up? Get your last question in. We've got the experts. The 3 of us can answer just about anything. Going once? Going twice? Okay, no more questions. I think that's our time for today. So thank you very much for tuning in, and be sure to tune in to the next Adobe Live to learn all the new things from the experts.